Hi, my name is Hiram, and welcome to my Python mini tutorial series. This series is going to be covering some of the in and outs of Python with respect to you, the beginning programmer. Now, I'm going to try my best in these videos to cover some of the topics that you might be having a hard time wrapping your mind around. If there's anything that I missed or anything that you might want me to elaborate on, let me know and I'll do my best to touch on it in a sequential video. Now, with that said and done, let's jump into this video, shall we? In this section, we're going to be covering Boolean logic, specifically the comparators and, or, and not. So let's get started, shall we? The comparator AND takes two Boolean values and it multiplies them. Now, I say multiply because that's simply the easiest way to explain it. Remember that the true and false are also equal to 1 and 0. I say this because it makes remembering AND that much easier. So if I was to say take true and false, what would this be equal to? It would be equal to saying 1 times 0, where this is 1, this is 0, and is a multiplication sign. So this value should be 0, correct? Which is also false. There you go. Now this is true for every operation that you do with AND. It's 1 and 0 and multiplication sign. So the only time that this is going to be true is if it's 1 and 1 or true and true, because 1 times 1 is 1. Every other time this is going to be false, simply because anything times 0 is and always will be 0. Let me print out a couple more simple ones. Actually, let's do false and false, just to show you. Okay, this is 1 and 1, 0 and 0. 0, 1, 0. False, true, false. So that's going to be an easy way to remember the AND operator and how it affects the Boolean values. The next operator we're going to go to, let me print an empty line here. The next operator we're going to go to is OR. Now, the OR operator works similarly in a mathematical mindset. It does have one exception, though, which I will cover as well. Now, let me put this over here, and equals times, right? Now let's go over the OR operator. The OR operator is basically addition. It's just a plus sign. There is an exception to this rule, but it can be overlooked because you only have two values. Let's go over this. So if true is 1 and false is 0, and the OR operator is a plus sign, what do we get? Print true or true. False or true. And one more, we'll say false or false. Right? I can't spell. Now, I immediately started off with the exception. Now remember that true is 1 and false is 0. So in this instance, you end up with 1 plus 1, which everyone knows is 2, or fish, depends. So 1 plus 1 is 2. That doesn't exactly fit in to our 1 or 0, you know? So in this instance, it's an exception. It is the only exception to the rule. But if you see true or true, you're going to know it's true. So we'll say that's the easy giveaway one. Now, this does work, however, for every other version. False or true, which is going to be true because it's 0 plus 1. False or false is going to be false because it's 0 plus 0. So let's print these out. Oh, right, I printed parentheses. My bad. So what do we have? True, just like I said, 1 plus 1, that's our exception. True, 0 plus 1, and false, 0 plus 0. So that's and true, and those are the easy ways to sort of think about them and remember them. Another easy way to sort of think about them is and always wants to be false. And always wants to be false. The only way and will ever be true if it's true and true. Otherwise, it'll never be true. Likewise, or always wants to be true. The only time or will be false is if it's false or false. Right? So, and always wants to be false or always wants to be true. The last comparator we're going to go to is not, which is not really comparator. It's a negative. So what not does is it flips whatever you have. So the easiest way to think about it is it's just the opposite. Right? So not true. See? Let me print an empty line there. So we have not true and not false. Those are really the only two that you can put. Not does not compare two values. It just reverses it. It's the easiest of the three. So with that said, let's move on to the next section, which is going to be math in Python. I'll see you there. In this section, we'll be covering how to convert formulas to code and the order of operations. Now, I have already started and created some examples. These are going to be our 3 bits of code that we are going to have to, or our 3 formulas that we have to convert into code so that Python can print it. Because right now, I get a syntax error. Now, I've already gone ahead and I've converted these and printed them, and these are the answers that I should be getting if I do this right. So let's get started on how to do this. First things first, you notice there's a tangent here. So Python doesn't out of the box handle tangent. You have to import the math module. So let's do that. Import math. So working on this one, the first thing we're going to do is, now that we've imported math, we might as well work on that. So let's do math.tan. Now, the x is what's on the inside of that tangent because of order of operations. It says so. Now, the next issue that you'll notice here is this says 5 math. That's not right. You have to tell it to multiply. So now it's 5 times the tangent of x plus 7. So this looks right. Let's move on to the next bit of code. Or the next formula. This is now code. This is a formula. Let's move on. Now, in Python, if you write 10x, it's going to think you're trying to define a variable of some kind. It's not going to work out. What you have to do is you always have to tell it to multiply. This has to be 10 times x. Now, here we have x squared, x raised to the 2. But this isn't how you square a number in Python. In Python, if you want a number to go up to a certain exponent, there's 2 ways to do it. One, you can use the power or exponent module in the math module, or you can do the multiplication sign twice, and that tells it x squared. X raised, think of it raised to the 2. So it's 10 times x squared. Now over here we have a 7x. We have to do 7 times x. Now order of operations will figure out the rest of it for you. It looks kind of messy. If you want, you can add as many parentheses as you like so that it's easier to read. But order of operations does say that the exponent will come first, and then the multiplication, and then the addition, and then the subtraction. Excuse me, I'm forgetting how to speak English. Now for the last one. This is 1/4 x, not 1/4x. If it was 1/4x, this would be in parentheses. So in order to avoid confusion, there's two things you can do. If it's a fraction that you can easily make into a decimal, make it into a decimal. In this case, you can do that. That's just 0.25. If you can't make it into a decimal, you just put an extra pair of parentheses around it. Because order of operations says the very first thing you're supposed to do is parentheses. But now we have this floating x here, and it's going to think you're trying to define a variable again. So just tell it to times. Then we have our division sign here, and we have an x squared, and in order to make it an exponent, we do times times. So this should print out these three numbers. Let's see what we get. What is this? A 0. Why do we have a 0 there? Let's find out. Now, the reason we have a 0 is because this 1/4. This is 1 divided by 4 times x, right? The reason it's working out that way is because that. When you print 1 divided by 4 this way, it comes out 0 because you have two integers here. And so it tries to come out as an integer number. So if you want an accurate answer, you will have to either change this to a decimal, 0.25, or you can convert that 1/4 to a float, which I won't go over how to do that. So the best thing to do is just type in 0.25. Yeah, there we go, 0.125. So it looks like we've pretty much got it. So I've been saying a lot about order of operations. Order of operations in math is the order that, well, you do an operation. You look at a formula and you decide which part of the formula goes first. There's an acronym, Pemdas, and this acronym stands for parentheses, exponent, multiplication, division, addition, and subtraction. That is the order of operations. So if you have a formula that has, say, like this, right? And then it's minus x squared, all right? The way that the order of operations is going to look at this is going to say, all right, is there parentheses? Yes, there is. Okay, let's do the parentheses first. X minus 2, which if x is 2, it's going to be 0. Is there an exponent? Yes, there is an exponent. X squared. Is there multiplication? No. Is there division? No. Is there addition? No. Is there subtraction? Yes, there is. There it is. So it's going to do it in that exact order.